Before we begin our story, let me explain some important Japanese cultural elements that will help you understand this tale. In Japanese folklore, fireflies hold deep spiritual significance. They are believed to be the souls of the departed, particularly those who died tragically. This belief stems from ancient Shinto traditions, where natural phenomena are seen as manifestations of spirits. The story also references classical Japanese poetry, specifically a poem by Izumi Shikibu, an 11th century court lady and poet. Her poem compares a troubled soul to a firefly wandering from its body. Additionally, the story takes place during Japan's intense summer heat, known as tropical nights, where temperatures remain uncomfortably high even after sunset. This creates an atmosphere where the boundary between reality and the supernatural feels thin. River drownings are unfortunately common in rural Japan during summer months, when children seek relief from the heat. These tragic incidents often become part of local folklore and ghost stories. Now let's begin our story. It was August. A gentle breeze flowed through the open window, carrying with it the faint sound of cicadas. The clock had just passed 6 in the evening. The sun was beginning its descent, and according to the weather forecast on the radio, tonight would be another tropical night. Our small car carried 3 people, myself included, along a single-lane prefectural road that followed the river. We were heading upstream from the lower reaches toward the middle section. Sam was driving. I sat in the passenger seat and Kevin was in the back. Our usual group. However, Kevin had a bag containing a complete camping tent set on his lap. Since he was prone to car sickness, he couldn't lie down sideways. He had been suffering, slightly swaying his head left and right for some time now. We had planned to camp by the riverside today. Besides Kevin's tent, our car trunk was packed with food, sleeping bags and alcohol, mainly whiskey. "Let's go see fireflies by the night river," Kevin had suggested. Apparently, he knew of a place where fireflies often gathered. This surprised me. Kevin was an occultist, and usually his proposals would be something like, "Let's go to that haunted mansion," or "Let's visit that famous suicide spot." But this time it was a perfectly normal suggestion. "Let's drink while watching the firefly lights," Kevin had said. I had no reason to object. But that would mean only one person, Sam, the driver, couldn't drink. When Kevin asked, "You're okay with just juice, right?" Sam replied, "Only if you drink river water instead of alcohol." So we decided to camp overnight by the river to make it fair for everyone. Sam had gotten the camping equipment from his family's house. As we traveled upstream against the river's flow, the river gradually narrowed. Instead of small, smooth, rounded stones, large jagged rocks became more prominent. We reached a point where the old road and new road separated in a D shape. While the old road curved dramatically along the mountain, the new road's bridge cut straight across as a shortcut. Our car turned onto the old road. We parked near a pedestrian suspension bridge that crossed the river. Next to the bridge was a path leading down to the riverbank. Sam and I divided the work of carrying our luggage down to the riverbank. Among our cargo was Kevin himself, a large piece of luggage who had been knocked out by car sickness. The river flowed with a gentle murmuring sound. The width was about 14 or 15 meters. The opposite bank was a concrete wall with a prefectural road running above it. As time passed and the sunlight weakened, what should have been transparent green water gradually turned black, as if ink had been dropped into it. There were no fireflies to be seen. Kevin, who seemed to have finally recovered, said they would come out only after it became completely dark. "There are clouds, no wind. Perfect firefly weather," he said. Apparently, fireflies dislike light from sources other than themselves, even the slightest moonlight. "Are you knowledgeable about fireflies, Kevin?" I asked. "Not just fireflies. I'm an insect expert, you know. After all, there are rumors that they're actually space creatures that originally came from outer space." "Ah, I see," I thought to myself. After all this, the 3 of us set up the tent. Since we couldn't drive pegs into the riverbank ground, we tied the tent's support ropes to trees and rocks. It was a family tent for 5 or 6 people, so the inside was quite spacious. Soon Kevin attached a cooking burner to a small gas canister, placed a pot on it, and began boiling water. Seeing his skill in setting up the tent, I wondered if Kevin was surprisingly outdoorsy. When I asked Sam about this, he sighed and said thanks to him, I was dragged around to various places as a kid. Then he added, well, I still am. Kevin then moved large stones to create a rough enclosure, gathered wood from surrounding trees, and built a campfire. When I tried to help by collecting firewood, he laughed and said, that's green wood, buddy. It'll just make smoke. By the time dinner was ready, the sun had set considerably, and everything was bathed in orange light. Dinner was a rough instant ramen, with chunks of cabbage, carrots, onions, narutomaki fish cake, and fish sausage thrown together haphazardly. Despite its appearance, it tasted quite good, and the pot was soon empty. After finishing the ramen, we poured whiskey into paper cups and toasted together. We snacked on the leftover cabbage and sausage, while Sam drank without any accompaniment. Attracted by the campfire, small insects began gathering around our tent. Fly-like insects, but slightly larger, bit my arms and legs in several places, making them itch. Those are hand-white flies, Kevin said. Apparently if you catch them and look closely, the tips of their front legs are white. That's why they're called hand-white. Should we try catching some? Kevin suggested. We didn't come here to look at flies, I replied. Fair enough. We had come to see fireflies. They're not appearing yet, I observed. It was past 8 o'clock in the evening, and it was already quite dark. Should be soon, Kevin said. He stood up, filled the empty pot with river water and poured it over the campfire. The fire died, the surroundings became visibly darker. Clouds covered the sky, leaving no moonlight. Only the small light from the gas lantern placed near the tent entrance kept us from losing our vision entirely. In the darkness, we remained silent for a while, quietly pouring whiskey into our stomachs. Come to think of it, I haven't told you guys this story yet, Kevin said, breaking the silence. Around here every few years, right around this time of year, fireflies appear in massive numbers. Intrigued, I responded with, really? It's not every few years exactly. It's truly random. Even researchers don't know the exact cause. But around here there's a story that's whispered about secretly. I couldn't see Kevin's expression. I could barely make out his silhouette, but in this light, we couldn't see each other's faces. This river, the downstream, isn't so bad, but around the middle reaches, there are suddenly deep spots and places with whirlpools. Quite a few people drown and die here, especially local elementary school children. Of course, such places are designated as no swimming zones. But well, you can't beat children's curiosity. I suddenly noticed my cup was empty. I looked for the whiskey bottle but couldn't see it. Well, even so, it's only 1 or 2 people every few years, but they seem to coincide, the years when drowning victims appear, and the years when fireflies mass reproduce. Oh, sorry, I have the whiskey. Kevin extended the bottle toward me, and I offered my paper cup to him. There was a tapping sound and liquid of an indeterminate color was poured into my cup, which I could barely identify as white. So, this year, are there any children who drowned? I asked after taking a sip and letting the burning sensation in my throat subside. Kevin laughed, ha ha ha, and said, I don't know anything about that. I only came here to see fireflies. And there's another strange thing about this story, Kevin continued. The fireflies you see in Japan are mainly 2 types, Genji fireflies and Heike fireflies. Genji firefly adults appear from May to June, at the latest through early July, so the ones appearing in August would almost certainly be Heike fireflies, which can be seen year-round. Kevin really did seem knowledgeable about insects. It was unusual for Kevin to explain things in such an understandable way, which made me feel somewhat uneasy. Usually such explanations were Sam's role, but he had been drinking quietly without even touching any snacks. But Heike fireflies don't mass reproduce. Being visible year-round means they don't all become adults simultaneously. On the contrary, it's the Genji fireflies that all become adults at once. But by this time of year, Genji fireflies have finished mating and died. Even with my intoxicated mind, I could understand somewhat. In other words, Kevin was trying to say this. So you're saying those mass appearing lights might not be fireflies? I asked. Oh, what do you know, you're pretty sharp, though the possibility of an abnormal outbreak of Heike fireflies is probably higher. If they're not fireflies, what would they be? I don't know. I've never seen them. But if I had to guess, ghost lights, human souls, or supernatural fires of that sort. You think we'll see them this year? Don't know, Kevin said, laughing. Oh ha ha. So it was occult related after all. I thought we had just come to see fireflies, but when push came to shove, Kevin was still Kevin, wasn't he? At that moment, Sam, who had maintained silence throughout, suddenly spoke. They're coming out. At his words, I quickly looked toward the river. I saw nothing. I strained my eyes. A flicker, something like blue sparks appeared at the edge of my vision. From that moment, countless pale blue lights began floating above the riverbank. Suddenly, the surroundings became even darker. Either Kevin or Sam had turned off the gas lantern in front of the tent. Thanks to this, the lights before us became much clearer. The lights were blinking. Moreover, all the flying lights disappeared and reappeared at exactly the same timing. It seemed as if all the countless lights were one single living creature. As time passed, the lights increased even more in number. As if covering the entire riverbank, they surrounded us too. My thoughts and senses went somewhere else, and only my eyes followed those lights. I wondered if I was hallucinating from the strong whiskey. It was such a fantastical sight. I even had the illusion that stars hidden behind clouds had descended to this level. When I think deeply, even the fireflies of the marsh seem like souls wandering from my own body. Sam's voice suddenly brought me back to reality. What's that? I asked. Izumi Shikibu, Sam replied. Who's that? I asked, further, and received a sigh in response. You're supposed to be a literature major. For several hours after that, we simply continued gazing at the starry sky before us. The word boring never even crossed our minds. Time passed in an instant. Gradually, the numbers decreased, and by the time it was past 10 o'clock at night, the lights completely fell silent. Kevin rebuilt the extinguished campfire and lit it again. This was a different fire from the lights we had just been watching. The crackling sound of burning and popping wood filled the air. The ancients believed that if humans have souls, they would be like the light of fire or the light of fireflies. Seeing what we just witnessed, I can understand that somewhat. Sam said this quietly while playing with an empty paper cup in his hands. Could that number be called a mass outbreak? If so, did someone drown in the river and die this year too? Along with my amazement, a slight question crossed my mind. Oh, by the way, Kevin, you brought an insect net, right? Why didn't you use it? I asked Kevin. Presumably he had brought it to catch them. The quickest way to determine whether those lights were human souls or insects. Ah, I forgot about it. Well, whatever. Those weren't human souls or anything. They were fireflies. They were doing collective synchronized flashing. Kevin stated definitively that they were fireflies. Ah, you mean how they all disappeared and lit up at the same time? Right. That's a firefly behavior. By lighting up simultaneously like that, males and females can distinguish each other. I see. Ah, but I was really hoping that the souls of drowned victims were flying around. However, Kevin's face showed no sign of disappointment. After seeing something that magnificent, it would be strange not to be satisfied. We then sat around the campfire talking for a while, and after the three of us had finished 2.5 bottles of whiskey, we decided to sleep. Although I was excited, I was quite drunk, so despite the tropical night, I was able to fall asleep immediately. The next morning, when I woke up, I was the last one remaining in the tent. When I went outside, Sam was sitting on a riverbank stone fishing, while Kevin was floating a glass-bottomed bucket in the river, holding a net and searching for something. That day was perfectly clear without a single cloud. After washing my face with river water, I went to Sam, who was fishing. Did you bring a fishing rod? I asked. I found it in those bushes yesterday. he replied. When I asked what he was using for bait, he said he had caught some hand white flies the day before and was using them. When he showed me, the hand white flies really did have white tips on their legs. Incidentally, Sam later achieved the feat of catching 2 splendid rock trout. We grilled them with salt for lunch, and they were delicious. When I went to Kevin, he was apparently trying to catch small fish called gory. Incidentally, he later caught about 10 gory, which became ingredients for our lunch miso soup. But the gory were bony and quite unpleasant to eat. Both of them were so energetic, I thought as I walked along the riverbank as far as I could go. Then I noticed a black insect corpse on the ground at my feet. A red helmet with a cross pattern, and black armor. When I picked it up, it was the corpse of a single firefly. I brought it back and showed it to Kevin. "Yeah, it's a firefly," he said with a glance, then bent down again to focus on the water. But then he suddenly stood up, grabbed my arm and looked at the firefly corpse again. "This is a Genji firefly," Kevin muttered. "This is a Genji firefly. Yeah, see the cross pattern on its head? I thought it would be a Heike firefly. But why is this guy appearing at this time of year? It's 1 or 2 months too late." I looked at the Genji firefly corpse in my hand once more. Kevin said, "That's strange," while taking out his phone from his pants and began researching something. He was probably checking the ecology of Genji fireflies on the internet. "Huh?" After a while, Kevin made a strange sound. He was staring intently at his phone screen. "What's wrong? Did it say they also appear in August?" "No, that's not it. I didn't know this either." "Then what?" Kevin showed me his phone screen and said, "The scientific name of the Genji firefly, Luciola cruciata. In Latin, it means shining cross." I could see the black cross pattern around the head area, but was this supposed to be a cross? I don't know what they're blessing, but not all the drowned victims were Christians. Kevin laughed quietly, saying, "Haha, shining cross. I remembered last night's lights. This season, 1 or 2 months later than when Genji fireflies normally sign, is when children play in the river. And only in years when people drown and die, the shining crosses fly around. Is it completely unrelated or is there a connection?" I suddenly remembered the song Sam had hummed last night. When I later asked Sam what it meant, he said with annoyance, "It's a poem comparing one's soul sinking in love to a firefly. Since ancient times, people have compared human souls to the light of fireflies." I shook my head. I understood nothing. After lunch we packed up the tent and loaded our luggage into the car. Before departing, Kevin said, "Wait a moment," took the half-remaining whiskey bottle, and headed to the suspension bridge. Wondering what he was doing, I watched as Kevin turned the whiskey bottle upside down from the bridge and poured all the remaining liquid into the river. "Yo, sorry for the wait," Kevin said when he returned. I thought about asking him what he had been doing, but decided against it. Kevin said nothing. If that was the case, there was no need for me to ask. The car engine started, and we left the river behind. "Well, we saw something wonderful. It was fun," I said sincerely in the moving car. "Indeed," Sam agreed, which was rare for him, so I suggested to both of them, "If we get another chance, let's go again." "Oh, is that so? Then next time it's the mountain," Kevin said. "It's quite far, but there's a mountain that became famous long ago when a man-eating bear appeared there. Please spare me from that," I thought. And so ends our tale of the fireflies by the river, a story where the boundary between the natural and supernatural remains beautifully unclear. Whether those lights were truly fireflies or something else entirely, that mystery will forever remain with those who witnessed them on that August night.